I pushed it.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, it's good.
We are live, lady. We're live.
Okay. Well,
Excellent.
welcome everyone to another Facebook Live with Dr. Nelva Bryant. We have another special episode today. Well, honestly, they are all special, but
Mhm.
today we are speaking to, oh, shoot, it's
What?
not streaming on Facebook.
Don't worry about it. We're gonna have to do it the same way. It doesn't show that on mine, but just keep going. We'll fix it. We'll fix it.
Okay, okay. So today we have a great episode for you today where we are going to be speaking to our friend, Dr. Amber Headen from the USDA. And we're going to talk about international travel and as well as the regulations needed for this. So it's great that we'll have an official person from the USDA to ask our questions and get
Yeah.
into pet travel. But before we bring her on, Dr. Bryant, how are things with you and what would you like to share with us today?
Everything. Thank you, Greta. Everything is going well. Busy as ever. I'm excited about today. Um, International pet travel. Just want to share the. It's something I think is very important that folks need to understand when you're traveling, especially internationally or sometimes domestically. There are specific requirements that have to be met. So I'm very happy today that we have Dr. Headen here to share information from USDA's side. Side note from that, I actually have been also giving some webinars and different presentations on international pet travel because again, working in the airline industry, I've noticed that for pet owners and also my fellow veterinarians, we are not up to speed on the requirements and what to do. And so I've been sharing webinars in reference to that on DVM 360's platform, on GVL's platform. I've done some webinars there too. And also for folks, well, this is more pet owners, but for my fellow veterinarians, so you'll know, I'm blessed that I have a classmate actually from vet school reached out to me in reference to developing a chapter on international pet travel in the next edition of Ettinger's textbook of veterinary internal medicine. So got that coming on the forefront. Hopefully, I think 2024 that'll be out and everything. So very happy about that, being able to share that information. And I would say it's only 2 pages, but it's packed with information to help veterinarians finagle through this whole process. Because again, you would think it would be common knowledge in the veterinary profession, but some of us haven't maintained our veterinary accreditation, and I know Dr. Headen is going to talk about that today. As veterinarians, we need to be accredited, and for pet owners, so you know, your veterinarian must be accredited by USDA to sign health certificates. You need to find a veterinarian to do this for you when you're traveling internationally. So either way, we'll get into it more deeply and everything. I'm excited about today. Let's see. We backtrack. Let me take a little breath for a second. We've been doing a lot, don't you think? Lately, we've been doing a lot. I was
Yeah,
asking people.
absolutely.
Well, yeah, we've been doing a lot. We've had some last ones. Like I said, just to recap and review some things we've done. We had Beth Miller last week talking about pet-friendly dog parks. She's with Wagtown. It was a great session just to hear more about the pet-friendly initiatives and her ideas for making dog parks more pet-friendly and everything. So we had her. Prior to that, we had
Well,
Rochelle
just to
Rogers.
hold on for a second. So
Yeah,
Wagtown isn't just about the dog parks. Wagtown is about making your community pet friendly,
right.
and she is doing an initiative to really dig into the dog parks to make them a safer, happier place for
Mhm.
your pet. So, I just want to encourage not just pet parents, but even government officials, if they are looking to get on the gravy train of making their towns, their hotels, their restaurants more pet friendly, Wagtown is a great resource and partner to help you achieve that goal.
Definitely, definitely. Um, Prior to that, we had remember Rochelle Rogers with she's our zoo. our zoo expert basically, but she was actually focusing on emergency preparedness,
Yes.
traveling, just getting your pet prepared for emergencies and everything. And gosh, Greta, you shared a lot of valuable information doing some research with ASPCA and all the different organizations that have resources available to assist in that aspect.
Yes.
So, and just be aware, we definitely need to be prepared during emergencies with your pets.
Absolutely.
I just love what we've been doing lately. I think we've been really touching on a lot of different topics. Some folks might think maybe it's not related to pet travel, but actually it is. It's all
Yeah.
related and everything. So I'm excited about that. So, but
Absolutely.
anything else you want to share before we go start in with Dr. Headen? Dr.
Yes.
Amber?
So, well, right. Natural disasters happen all over the country, all over the world. So everyone should have their own type of emergency preparedness plan put together, and then and things should be exercised with not just you and your family, but also including your pet. So when the time does come about, hey, to Dr. Bryant's pet making a
Bryant's
guest appearance.
she's letting me know that there's the neighbors in their yard. You know, they can't be in their yard. So hold on one second. Let's get her.
Go ahead. I'll talk to everyone. So while you should have an emergency pet preparedness plan, also go another step forward and practice that with your family as well as your pet. So when the time comes around, you, your family, and your pet are not nervous. Right now on the East Coast, we're going through our tornado season, where we learned from speaking 2 weeks ago with Rochelle that the season starts officially from June and runs till November. But I know here, especially around Florida, and Dr. Bryant and I are in Georgia, we actually don't start to really see the big stuff until September, October, and sometimes as early as August. So I know that last weekend there was one reported. So I just want to just stress people, please get your things together, because it's so sad when you see all these pets that have been left behind and then they don't know what to do, and of course they're upset, and half the world flies in to do what they can to save everyone. So it's just important that we all get our plan together, practice the plan, and make sure everybody, including your pet, is ready.
Definitely.
So,
Another thing right now that we're going through too, just a side note, this heat wave that we're experiencing. I know we haven't had anyone to really touch on the topic, but just off the top of my head, let's just remember to don't leave your pets in vehicles because it's extremely hot out. So don't transport them. Like I said, don't leave them in your vehicles. Make sure they have plenty of water. Don't leave them outside for an extended period of time. Just take care of your pets right now with this heat. We're dealing with it. So imagine what they're dealing with it with a hair coat. So
yeah.
take all the precautions for your pets during this
Yeah.
heat wave we're experiencing.
And it's funny, as when we're all kids, we don't really pay attention too much to the intricacies of being a pet owner like we do when we're adults. And I remember, and this jogged my memory because you brought up the heat. Now to me, one of the emphasis is the sidewalk and how hot the concrete can get. And it burns the pads, of your dogs or even cats that walk on the cement. And, as a young kid, I never thought about that, but that's a serious situation there.
I'm very happy you brought that up. I mean, again, that's another thing to think about. They're saying recommendations: don't walk your dogs at the hottest time of the day or exercise them during the hottest time of the day. The ground gets really warm, and we're not thinking about it because we got shoes on. So consider your pets and their pads during this heat and everything in reference to it. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff we don't really put together sometimes. I mean, you can have all the best intentions behind exercising your pet, but you've forgot one detail. You forget the little details like that. So please consider it right now during this heat wave because it's hot. Like it says, I had Naya out a few seconds ago. She did her favorite, roll on her back and everything. And I'm like, okay, You went to the bathroom, you did that. Let's get back in here. It's hot out there. It's hot. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's time to bring Dr. Headen in. So let me add her to the mix, add to stream.
Awesome. Hi, Dr. Amber. How are you?
Hello, good. How are you all?
Very, very
Oh,
good. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Yes, thanks for the invite. I'm
absolutely.
excited.
Absolutely. Welcome, Dr. Headen. I'm sorry, Headen. It's so good to have you. I am going to read your introduction to everyone so they know how fabulous you are as well. Dr. Amber Headen works with the USDA Animal Planet Health Inspection Services, also known as APHIS, the Veterinarian Services, and serves as the Director of Live Animal Exports. Dr. Headen has a diverse background in the veterinarian and agricultural fields, including animal health, public policy, international trade, and environmental health. Since joining APHIS in 2011, Dr. Headen has served in multiple positions, primarily focused on the safe movement of U.S. animals and animal disease surveillance. As the director of live animal exports, Dr. Headen and her staff collaborate with foreign trading partners and internal and external stakeholders to open, expand, and retain market access by applying scientific-based approaches to negotiations and remaining focused on animal health issues that maximize the marketability of U.S. animals. Dr. Headen received her doctorate of veterinary medicine from North Carolina State University College of Veterinary Medicine and previously worked as a mixed animal practitioner, providing mobile services to large and small animals. Everyone, please help us welcome Dr. Headen.
Thank
So
you.
happy to be here.
Now,
And
Dr. Headen, every time I say to welcome someone, Dr. Bryant is supposed to be pushing the clap button. So I want you to know we usually have that.
I'll just
That's
say
why
I'm
I'm going
sorry.
like this.
I'm sorry. We're clapping. We're
I saw the
happy.
claps. Yes.
Okay, you saw the clap. Again, my little thing here, it's, can you hear that?
And there you go.
There we go. We're very happy you're here. We may not have all the sound system to let you know that, but we're very happy you're here. And I think
I
our
appreciate that.
followers here are definitely going to be excited to hear the information you share today. So thank you for coming today. I met Dr. Amber through work with Delta. She reached out to me to kind of have a connection within Delta Airlines, and I'm very thankful for that. And then I thought about it a little bit more to myself. I'm like, gee, we really need to have her on When Pets Fly because, trust me, as working in the airline industry, I hear of stories of pet owners traveling out of the United States with their pets, a lot of times in cabin, most of the time in cabin, and they'll get to their destination, international destination, and all of a sudden they realize, oh, I was supposed to complete some documentation. Oh, I didn't know that. And it should be common knowledge. You're traveling domestically, I mean, say Hawaii or Puerto Rico or internationally, you have to have, there's specific documentation you need to travel. So what better person to share that information? I thought Dr. Amber would be great to have on When Pets Fly.
Yes, I really appreciate the invite, and you are so true in what you just stated. Like, as anyone travels internationally, and you're taking a pet or you're taking another type of animal, it's so important to look to see what those requirements are, because more than likely there's going to be some requirements. There's going to be a health certificate that's needed in order for those animals to successfully enter whatever your destination country is. So that is why I am here today to talk about how we can help promote our pet owners and making sure they know where to go, how to look for information, and who they should contact when they have questions on how to get their pets to travel with them and not be detained or sent back or quarantined once they get to their destination country.
Definitely. I'm sure I always bring this story up because it just blows me away in a way. When I was with CDC, I remember hearing a story of, I believe it was, and oh God, I hope I don't get killed for this, but I remember there was a story where Johnny Depp tried to take his pets into Australia, and they didn't meet the requirements, and the country had threatened to euthanasia of their pets. And at the time, it was like an uproar of like, "Oh my God, how's that possible? Oh, that's mean of that country." But you know what? The reality is that is their country, and they have specific requirements to enter Australia, and they have every right to protect their country. So we need to realize again, when you're traveling internationally to a destination country, you need to make sure your pet or any other animal that you're transporting meets those
Right.
requirements of that destination country.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, we got a
Well,
bunch of questions going. What we got going on? Do we have anything lined up?
Dr. I apologize. Dr. Headen, why don't you tell everyone about APHIS? Let's start there so that people know exactly what is the connection between the USDA, what is APHIS, and why is it important to regulations?
Absolutely. So APHIS is one of the agencies that's under the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and it was established to truly safeguard American agriculture and its natural resources. So that is like the parent agency. And then once you drill down a little bit further, we have veterinary services, and veterinary services is the nation's like veterinary competent authority. And our main mission is to improve the health, the quality of life for animals and the people that work with those animals, such as pet owners, and the productivity, in addition to maintaining and promoting the availability of those animals, animal products, and veterinary biologics. So APHIS and veterinary services, like this is a full-time job. And when I say full-time, we're working day in and day out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making sure that our American agriculture, specifically our U.S. animals, are safe and they're productive, their quality of life is good, and we are able to market those animals appropriately by working with our trading partners. So that's kind of a really brief summary of the work that we do within veterinary services.
Okay, so as a pet parent, why is it important for us to go to APHIS to find out regulations?
Great question. So, as the director of live animal exports, I work with a wonderful team of staff officers where our primary responsibility is negotiating with our trading partners those specific requirements that any animal must meet to enter their country. So, just as we, as people, have to meet certain requirements, have to have our passports anytime we travel internationally, animals have the same requirements. And so our job is to make sure that we have those requirements available for pet owners to travel. On our APHIS Pet Travel website, anytime we negotiate a health certificate or a protocol for animals, we post that immediately on our website. So anyone that's looking to travel to whatever country, they can go specifically to that country page, look at the specific requirements for their pet to travel in order for them to successfully enter that country. And I do want to make a note, not every animal is considered a pet, right? So we have, so most of the time we consider pets to be dogs, cats, rabbits, and fairies, which are all pets. And I know sometimes these days we also have pet horses and pet pigs. However, those are considered livestock, and not pets as we define it. So when we're talking about those type of animals, there are different requirements that livestock have to abide by in order to enter into a specific country.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, connecting our audience to actually past guests. So, to your point, if our pet parents do have horses that they're trying to bring in or out of the country, their best bet is to connect with the ARC at JFK because they are the primary transportation hub to bring horses and some other livestock in and out of the country. So, I wanted to point that out But for your
So
typical,
they are they are a transportation company that anyone could go with. However, when it comes to the requirements, the animal health requirements that horses, cattle, swine, and any other animal that someone is looking to export to another country or bring into the United States, APHIS is still that competent
Yes.
authority. And we have created another website just for our livestock animals, for our livestock exporters, our zoo exporters, that they should also refer to as well. So we have established an APHIS regulations page for those animals, and we have a separate APHIS page for our pet owners because we realize those are two different audiences and how we display the information.
okay. And I actually have the, let's see, the APHIS for Pet Travel website. I'll show that now so people can see that. And I think the site that I'm showing, this is for the pet. But
That
I'd like to get down from you the livestock one, and what I can do is
I
share that
just
with
put it in
everyone
the
later.
chat. So you have that. Hopefully you can see it in the
It's
chat. And that
Yep,
is going
I
to
do.
be for all of our other animals outside of our pet animals.
Okay, okay, great. And what I'll do is I'll create a flyer after this so that I can share that with everyone as well as the one for pets too.
Okay,
So
perfect.
because we like to make sure everybody gets all the resources that our guests share. So thank you so much for giving us that in the chat box. So let's see. I know with another um, we had guests on called Positively Health Certificates towards the beginning of our conversations, and they help parents in putting together the health certificates for that are required by you. So this question, let's see, I put up the wrong one. Hold on. There's a question. Um, if someone thinking about traveling, let me see if I can get it to show up for us.
yeah, it's I
It's
see it.
showing.
It's
Yeah.
showing.
Oh, okay. It's not on mine yet. If someone is thinking about traveling with their pet to another country, when should they start planning and looking over requirements for their pet travel?
As soon as possible. That is a great question. As soon as a pet owner is thinking about going to a certain country, but they may not have a timeline or a date, that's when they should start looking on our APHIS Pet Travel website to see what those requirements are. And at the same time, that's when they should work with their accredited veterinarian to see how they can start working to meet those requirements. And I know, Dr. Bryant, you touched on accredited veterinarians earlier. So I'll put a note in there about that. An accredited veterinarian is different
Mm-hmm.
in some cases than just a practicing veterinarian. Um, Practicing veterinarians have to take an additional step in training under our National Veterinary Accreditation Program, which is a federal program under USDA. If they would like to help pet owners or help any animals as it relates to exporting and through that export process. So, as Dr. Bryant said, international health certificates can only be issued by an accredited veterinarian. It is a voluntary program for veterinarians to get that additional training. And so I do highly recommend any pet owner that is traveling. As you are looking to your practice, make sure that they are accredited. If you are not sure, if you don't know an accredited veterinarian in your local area, we do have a resource to help people find accredited veterinarians for the species that you're working with on our APHIS website as well. That can be very useful.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if you know this, Dr. Amber. There's fellow veterinarians that are out in practice right now. A lot of them don't want to. Well, they don't want to take that extra step, and I can actually understand a little bit because they're so busy in private practice that
Right.
this additional step slows them down fully if you think about it. I mean, if you're used to surgeries, appointments, and then now you have to sit there and focus on these regulations and making sure they meet. That's why the company Positives Positively, I'm sorry, I forgot their names fully, but it's Positives Pet Health Certificates, I believe, is a company. That's why they actually exist, because there's a space where veterinarians don't want to do it anymore, or they're saying it's just taking too much time. But either way, we still have to make sure these animals meet those requirements when traveling internationally. So, but yes,
Absolutely. And again, it has to be an accredited veterinarian
yes,
that is working with you. Because a lot of times there's going to be testing requirements that have to be done within a specific time
and,
frame.
and
There's treatments that also need to be done as well. Yep.
I have to bring up just something that someone mentioned to me beforehand. Please clarify. Just because one person may be accredited in that veterinary hospital, it is not an umbrella for everybody, correct?
That is correct. Accreditation is specific to that individual and is specific to the state that they are practicing in.
Mhm.
So if someone is practicing in multiple states, just having a general accreditation does not exist. They must be accredited in each state that they are practicing in. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Again, a lot of it's not clear, and I noticed too on a lot of things within the airline industry, they'll say such as a health certificate is by a licensed veterinarian. I took it a step further. It's more than a licensed veterinarian.
It
Like you
is.
said, you have to be a USDA accredited veterinarian to sign a health certificate or an international health certificate. So
That is correct. Yes.
I wanted to ask, is there a different process, or if you are traveling to multiple countries?
Sure. Yeah. So that's a complex process, right? And I highly suggest and recommend, if a pet owner is planning this like wonderful multi-destination
right,
journey, then they should look at each of those countries to see what their requirements are if they plan on taking their pet with them. Because that's going to be key to make sure that they can meet all the requirements from country to country, and as they're leaving the United States and going to that first destination country. So planning is key, regardless
yes,
if you're going to one country or you're going on a 60-day exploration, across the world. Planning is going to be key
yeah.
in all of that.
And at one point I want to make on that too is that when we say international health certificate, sometimes it's people might think that it's a blanket international health certificate, but actually these certificates might be specific for each country. So that's why you have to do
Absolutely.
that research with it, because say I'm going to, I don't know, I'm going to Amsterdam and I'm going to El Salvador and I'm going wherever else. Each country will have a specific certificate, international health certificate with their country on it. So you have to meet
Absolutely.
requirements for every country.
And that's one thing about our AFES Pet Travel website, is that you are completely accurate with that. We negotiate specifically with each country what those animal health requirements are. And that's really going to depend on, what disease risk that country is concerned about related to what disease concerns that we have here in the United States. And so on our AFES Pet Travel website, a pet owner can go there and pick whatever country they're going to specifically and see what those requirements are for each country, because they are going to be different.
Right. And folks need to realize there's different disease. I mean, I guess we're so focused on us in the United States, but there's certain diseases that we have here that they don't have in other countries. And guess what? They don't want them. And for you traveling with your pet, they want to make sure you can't just say, "Oh, my pet's vaccinated." No, they want to know specifically. Say if it's a rabies vaccination, they might want a rabies titer to prove that he's fully immunized against rabies. And then other could be other infectious diseases they want to make sure your pets are clear of. So it's just, as you
Correct.
said earlier, it takes time. As soon as you know you're going to travel internationally, get what you're, well, go to the
Yeah,
USDA Pet Travel website, start looking at all the requirements, and then getting a accredited veterinarian and start working on this process, because it's not going to be 10
absolutely.
days. It could take months, right?
Absolutely. Depending on what those testing and treatment requirements are. And that's why even if you're thinking about traveling internationally and you haven't confirmed any dates yet, go ahead and start looking at that process, because that might help you determine the best time frame for you to travel, depending on when your accredited veterinarian that you're working with, what timeline and schedule you all work out to make sure that your pet meets those destination country requirements.
is this a fair question to ask? So I know people should start looking right away, but what if you don't find out about your trip until 30 days out? Like, is that enough time? Like, how much time do you need to get everything done with you?
It's really dependent on the country. I'll be honest, it's dependent on multiple factors, depending on what the country requirements are, your accredited veterinarian and how they are able to meet those requirements, and then also the process and time it takes for that certificate to be issued from your accredited veterinarian once all of the requirements have been met. And that certificate has then been submitted to APHIS for our endorsement, review of the certificate, review of test results, if there are any, and our official endorsement as the competent authority for the United States. So all of that has to go into consideration on what the best timeline is.
Okay, so it sounds like you need a minimum of like 2 months.
Yeah, it's really hard to say, right? Because every country has their own requirements and different time frames. So there's not a one fits all type of scenario. But as soon as you are aware, then that's the time that you should be looking to see what those requirements are.
I
Well,
love
I was just going to say, are the requirements the same for service dogs?
Yeah, I like that question that you have there because again, what we have, and if you don't mind, Dr. Amber, I'll answer it and you can follow up with it. But I think it's a great question. Folks need to realize service, even as a service dog, it's still a dog, it's still an animal. There's a potential of exposures there. So I don't think the requirements are any different for service dogs. They might have additional requirements proving that they're service dogs when traveling, say, internationally. But as far as the international health certificate, what's your say on that, Dr. Amber?
It's going to be country dependent. There may be some countries that have different requirements for service dogs. In general, they are going to be about the same as far as meeting the testing requirements, the treatment requirements, and so forth. Those are going to be the same. If and when there are differences, our website, our APHIS Pet Travel website, will have that noted, and we'll have those specific protocols should there be any for service dogs.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're still animals. I always say they're still animals.
Correct.
And actually, they're vital. So I would really want to make sure they're protected and able to enter those countries because they're vital for that person's travel.
Well, I know that the one thing people with service dogs, they are lucky to know that their service dogs can go anywhere. But I'm glad we're bringing up this point that you still have to get the paperwork to prove that they are healthy enough to enter into other countries and stuff like that. It's not that they would have not been allowed in, but this is the paperwork is showing they're healthy and not bringing things over to the new country, as well as not bringing things back to their country.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. There's a question I'm trying to pull up, and let me know if you guys see it. Can a pet return to the U.S. on the same international health certificate if it has not expired?
That is a good question. And I know oftentimes pet owners do believe that they can travel on the same health certificate. However, so our CDC, the Center for Disease Control, they are the competent authority for pet dogs coming back into the United States. So it's going to depend on what the CDC requirements are for those dogs coming back in, especially as it relates to rabies, as we all know is a public health concern as well. So my recommendation is for pet owners that are traveling to other countries from the U.S., if they plan to return to the United States with their pets, then they should be looking on the CDC website prior to leaving. So they know exactly what's going to be required when they are planning to return back into the United States.
Definite. I shared earlier with Dr. Amber that, I actually, prior to going to Delta, I worked with CDC, really was a dog importation SME in reference to that. And it was always a concern. Folks would always email us and asking questions about returning to the U.S. with their pets. And again, this is back in, say, before 2018. But they were returning back with their U.S. pet, and they're saying, it's an American dog. I'm like, that's not enough. We need further documentation that they meet CDC's importation requirements. And side note for you guys, we put a little bit of information out on the website just so you'd be aware. CDC is actually have a let's see, it's called NPRM, Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, where they're actually updating the potential for the regulations for the importation of dogs coming into the country, specifically also for coming from high rabies risk countries. So I'd advise go to our website. We have information on it. There's a comment period on this NPRM. Um, you might want to look into that because you have an opportunity to share your thoughts on their proposal. And they will look at every comment. They do look at everyone and kind of weigh it out if it's valid or not. But might want to take a look at that and have your input basically in reference to that. I think that the comment period ends September 8th. So go ahead and take a look at that. Again, side note on CDC's importation regulations. But as Dr. Amber said,
Yeah, just
I would say, as she said, whenever you're leaving the country, and most likely if you're just traveling and you want to travel with your pet, remember you have to come back. So you've got to research that your destination requirements, and then also research the requirements to come back into the United States as well.
Yeah, to just follow up on what you said about the news report you added to the website. So if people go to winpets.com under our news section, you'll see the article that indicates effective August 1st, 2023, the CDC is extending the temporary suspension of the importation of dogs from countries qualified by the CDC as high risk for dog rabies. And this temporary suspension is effective until July 31st, 2024. But to what you were saying, let's see, the public comment period will be open through September 8th, 2023. So, people can make their statements known for this ruling with the CDC until September 8th.
Yep. Thank
you. So we threw out a whole lot to everyone in regards to
so much. We are saying so much. So right.
So I wanted to kind of get an order. So I'm a pet parent and I want to take my 3 cats to England. So now that I know this, and we're aiming for, let's say, a Christmas trip. Okay. So that gives maybe some 3-4 months time. What is the first thing I should do? I'm assuming go to your website, correct?
Absolutely, yes. Yes. Okay. Go to the APHIS Pet Travel website. That's always going to be step 1. Is to go to the website to see what exactly those requirements look like.
Okay. And then after I go to the site and I read about the country, then do I number 1, does your website have a steps, procedures that I can follow and I can check off? Does that exist?
Yes. So we've really tailored our APHIS Pet Travel website to speak to our pet owners, to speak to our accredited veterinarians that are working with our pet owners. So there are checklists for pet owners to follow, for our accredited veterinarians to follow. Under our resource tabs, we have a lot of good information to really walk our pet owners through that process that we're going through right now. What steps do I need to take first? What does this look like if I'm traveling with my pet for the first time and really have no idea where to start?
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll grab those so that I can share them on social media with everyone. And in the steps, okay, so I know I need to go to APHIS, which will point me to, I need to check out the country and then what their requirements are. And then I know I need to go to an accredited veterinarian, and you mentioned, I guess you have a database where I can go and look for an accredited veterinarian near me. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, so our accreditation program has two categories. We have a category one for accredited veterinarians, and those are veterinarians who have taken that additional training under our NVAP federal program to work with our pet and fiber species animals. So our dogs and cats, ferrets and rabbits and so forth. And then we have a category two accredited veterinarians who take a little bit more training than the category one, and they can work on all species. So they work on dogs, cats, zoo animals, livestock, you name it. And so in the Find Your Local Accredited Veterinarian link, you can type in your area, what species that you're working with, and then it will provide some information on the accredited veterinarians in that area that work with that particular
Okay.
species.
Now, let me ask this because Dr. Bryant, we have put out there a couple of times in this episode about positively pet health certificates. Is it, I guess I'm in my head thinking they are the ones who would organize the whole health certificate portion with an accredited veterinarian.
What
Should, um,
what
is,
what they're doing is basically they're organizing the steps for that accredited veterinarian to ensure everything is done at a certain pace. In a sense, they're taking that work that veterinarian might need to do to organize it, they're doing it on their behalf. They're still seeing the
okay.
accredited veterinarian. They're still going there, but they're stepping out a little bit and assisting the veterinarians with organizing the process for them and everything. So that's
Okay, that's what I wanted to make clear. I wasn't sure, yeah, if we go directly to APHIS, do we not need positively pet health certificates, or do they work in, how do they fit in this cycle?
like I said, follow the steps. This is like we said before. Look at the USDA pet travel website to find out the requirements. Find an accredited veterinarian, and you, in a sense, pet health certificates are not even in the criteria. But again, they are important because they help those veterinarians that don't have the time to do all that to organize it. Because again, with the schedule of a routine veterinarian in small animal practice, they are doing surgeries, dentals, and seeing cases. And now you're going to have to make them, they have to sit and organize and research this information and ensure it's done in order. So Positives Pet Health Certificates does it for them on their behalf, which I think is really, to be honest with you, I think it's smart. And through my travels these past few years, I've met internationally other countries where they have actually businesses doing this, and they're doing extremely well because, again, they're taking a step away from that routine clinical veterinarian. They're taking over that care for them, as far as they're not doing the work for them, but they're organizing it. And
Yeah.
actually, there actually could be a business case for you going to just a site that does that, where all we do is you come to me, I'm accredited, I will make sure your pet meets all the requirements, and you come to me for that. I mean, that's a business case too. So
Yeah, there are a lot of helpful resources out there these days to help our accredited veterinarians and make sure that they understand the requirements. And because they are the ones that are held accountable on what they issue on that certificate. I know we do a lot of outreach with our accredited veterinarians as well to make sure they understand the process. We recognize that it can be complex at times. And so we do spend that time working with them so they understand it, and they can then turn around and make sure that the pet owners understand it as well.
I've heard through some of the webinars I've given and the Q&A period afterwards, and folks will say some of the things I brought up, again, as far as the need for multiple international health certificates if they go into different countries. Question also come up of saying, well, what's the significance of this? Why is it important that, okay, for say going to Europe, you have to have the microchip first and then the rabies vaccination, or at least the same? It's like, why is that so important? Or do we have to follow that? And it's like, well, look, if that is a country requirement, that is their requirement. We are not in the place to debate their requirements or the importance. We just need to comply. So going back to say microchipping, just to mention, if I believe it's a lot of the European countries, microchip is required first or at the same time as the
That
rabies
is
vaccination.
correct. Yes.
And if not, say if you've rabies vaccination, then to give the microchip afterwards, guess what? You're going to have to revaccinate your pet against rabies again after
That
that.
is correct. And
Yeah.
that's why it's so important to really a pet owner to really sit down with the accredited veterinarian
Mhm.
to look at all those nuances to make sure that everything is followed appropriately,
Yeah.
so you don't have those hiccups that may delay travel right on the back
Yeah.
end, but can
'Cause
be
you're-
as smooth a
yeah.
process as possible.
Yes, extremely, extremely.
Let's see.
Questions.
I'm pulling up a question. Let me see if you guys, let me know if you guys see it. Who can we contact if we have questions on country requirements posted on the APHIS Pet Travel website?
That's a good question. So we do have a customer call center that is available to answer our pet owner questions. We also have our endorsement offices that are located strategically throughout our country to be of service to our pet owners and to our exporters that are traveling with animals and exporting to other countries. So if there is ever questions on what's posted on our website, or maybe there is some clarification that's needed, we definitely have those resources for our pet owners to reach out to get that information.
Okay.
Perfect.
And that can be found on our APHIS Pet Travel website as well. That's why I say it's the best place to start first, because all of that information can be found on that website.
And everything that I have done, I've always say that is a website to go to find out the information you need. Honestly, like I said, only thing that I could say it doesn't have is sometimes a timeline on certain things. And again, that's some of it is it varies by country as we say. But if folks understood there's a timeline to what they're doing. So again, I would say follow your definite recommendations as soon as you know you want to travel to an international destination. That's your first step. And you want to bring your pet with you. Please go there first to find out the requirements, get with your accredited veterinarian and map out the timeline. Because folks need to realize too, some of the diagnostic tests that might be needed, I mentioned earlier, the rabies titer, well, that has to go to a specific lab. That can't go to your routine Antec, IDEX, or whatever it is used. That has to go to a specific lab. And I don't know if that's accredited through USDA or what, but I know it's a specific laboratory for these particular testing. Is that correct?
That is correct. A lot of times our countries will require that testing for rabies or other diseases must be done in an approved laboratory that is overseen by the competent authority, or there may be similar language. But yes, and that means that those samples must be sent to approved labs to do that specific testing, which may take additional time.
And I just wanted to ask a question just to clarify something. Did you say that the health certificates only have a shelf life of 30 days?
Yeah, go back to that.
That's a good question. So in general, yes, once the certificate is issued by the accredited veterinarian, that certificate is valid for 30 days. However, if a country specifies a more restrictive time frame, then that is a time frame of validity. So if a country states once the certificate is issued that it's valid for 10 days, then that certificate is valid in 10 days. And that must be considered in that overall process, right? So making sure that you include that validity of the health certificate when you're planning with your accredited veterinarian, so you can make sure that you're getting everything done, it's being issued, and it's being endorsed by APHIS within that time frame, so that you're still able to travel with that paper certificate and everything is valid as it needs to be. So that's a very good question.
Yeah. And also, I don't know if we made it clear, we said that as far as it's valid for 30 days. Remember too, side note, okay, coming back to the country, you can't utilize that because you have to utilize CDC's importation requirements. With that. And then also, folks need to realize too, for the airline wants a health certificate that's been issued within 10 days of travel. So it can't be valid for coming back either for that. So again, you leave the country with your pet, there's a lot for you to come back and everything that you must meet requirements, especially if it's beyond, say, that 10 days of the initial issuance of that certificate. So just be mindful of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm confused. So you can't come back on the certificate you left with?
Well,
No,
I think within 10 days, no, maybe not. Maybe not.
for the international health certificate that APHIS endorses to go to that country, in most cases, that's not going to be acceptable in coming back into the United States, right? Because that's a certificate that we have specifically negotiated for a pet to enter into that specific country. And so
Okay,
pets coming back into the United States, the competent authority for that is going to be CDC, and they have their own requirements, as any country, right, of pets coming into the United States. So they would be
okay,
the first place to go for your pet to return
And,
into the
and,
United
and folks
States.
to understand too the difference. CDC regulates the importation of dogs coming into the country, and USDA APHIS Veterinary Services is
Correct.
export. So folks have to understand the difference between those two.
okay. I
Absolutely.
hate to say this because the light bulb just went off now, and I was like, wait, you don't. Okay, so that means there's two places I got to go to for
Yeah,
the dog to go and then come back. Okay.
yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. We might as well leave them home.
Are you second guessing your trip now? With
I know.
I don't think Hank's coming with me to England now.
yeah, second guess. Yeah, I mean it's a lot to consider, and I mentioned also these are regulatory things to consider with pet travel for folks to remind you too. Also consider it really if it's in the best interest for your pet to do all this and as well because that's a lot that you're going to put them through to leave the country and come back as far as documentation as far as meeting requirements for that destination. Then also you consider too best interest is my pet healthy enough for travel, and I just want to bring that up to make sure people are clear with that as well. If they're not medically fit for travel, don't do it. What you need to do is actually review the medical history of your pet with your veterinarian to review if there's any underlying medical conditions. Maybe it's not in the best interest right now, so just
Yeah,
consider that too.
Absolutely.
absolutely. Dr. Headen, we're coming to close to the end of our show. Is there any last minute points or tips that you want to make sure that you share before we all leave?
I think I've kind of said this multiple times, but I'll say it again. The APHIS Pet Travel website is key. It provides all of the information that a pet owner will need to successfully get their animal from the United States to whatever country they are going to. Another thing that I don't think we've talked about is how they submit that certificate to APHIS once they have worked with their accredited veterinarian to get that certificate issued. We do have two options. The first option is through our electronic system, which is called the Veterinary Export Health Certification System. We love acronyms in the USDA. So the acronym for that is VHICS.
Yes.
But it cuts down tremendously the amount of time it takes to process certificates. All of our certificates can be issued in VHICS by the accredited veterinarian. And we have multiple countries that now allow digital endorsement from APHIS. So what that means is when a accredited veterinarian, a USDA accredited veterinarian submits that certificate in VHICS, APHIS can also digitally endorse that certificate in the VHICS system. And the accredited veterinarian and the exporter can then download and print that certificate right from the system. So that saves time in mailing, processing, and getting it back. So that's the first option. The second option is mailing in that certificate to APHIS to your local endorsement office. Again, that takes time because you have to mail it. APHIS has to receive it, and then we have to mail it back to you. So that all of that timing should be considered as a person is planning to travel with their pet as well.
Can can I make one comment in reference to that too, with the difference between getting it endorsed? Be aware, you need the endorsed copy prior to travel. There's
Absolutely.
a lot of situations where individuals will have the signed document from the accredited veterinarian, but it's not endorsed at that point, and they feel they can continue to travel. We need the endorsed copy of that for you to move forward. So um, I know there could be time crunches, and especially I know there's a lot of military travelers, and there's a time crunch in what they're doing, but you must make sure that you have the appropriate documentation. If endorsement is required, get that done before you travel.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can be digital endorsement, or you that can be like a wet ink signature with our embossed seal over that. But every shipment, whether that's pets, whether that's livestock, they must still travel with the that certificate, the endorsed certificate in hand.
Mm-hmm.
A paper copy of that certificate must accompany that shipment. It's a very good point.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
this is awesome. Thank you
Well,
so much for being
Yes.
here today
I
and
know
Yeah.
that
information. Definite.
what I'll do is, like always, create a flyer for social media with all of the links that Dr. Headen had shared with us, so that people can have them as a quick resource, as well as following back up with this talk that we're having to find out more information. But I want to thank you, Dr. Headen, so much for coming and sharing all this great knowledge with us, and helping us pet parents become a little bit more organized in getting our pets overseas with us.
More than welcome. Anything that we can do to spread the word about APHIS pet travel to decrease the anxiety or the issues that pet owners may have when they are traveling internationally. That's what we are here for, to make sure they know what resources to go to help them in that process.
Yeah, perfect.
Fantastic. Dr. Bryant, do you have any last minute words you want to say?
No, again, I want to thank you again, Dr. Amber, for being here with us and sharing this valuable information. Maybe we can have you back again. Just again, the more you hear it, the more
Right.
you
Absolutely.
bring it out.
Absolutely.
So this is not just one time and that's it. We need to hear it more and more so it becomes common knowledge that, hey, you're traveling, this is what you do. So we'll have you back again and share further information.
That sounds like a great plan. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for having me again today.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. All righty. Anything else you want to share? Let's see. Oh gosh, we've got a break now, right? Or do we have something next week? I'm trying to remember. We have a break, right?
Let's see. Uh, you looking for it?
I'm always doing
Um,
this at the last minute. I think we're have a break, right?
yeah. Well, actually, no. Our next Facebook Live is going to be
Mm-hmm.
on August the 4th. And then August the 11th, August the 4th, we're talking with Yonder Paws, and they're a dog travel community. And then we're speaking August 11th, we're speaking with Be Spotted, which is a marketing and PR firm for the pet industry.
We've
So,
we've got a lot coming up in the future, honestly, and I believe we're kind of scheduled out through October with our Facebook lives. And again, this is an opportunity to share information I think that will help the pet parents and fellow veterinarians in reference to pet travel. I'm just thankful for the opportunity to have this platform to share it. But again, Dr. Amber, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you. And I hope you all have a great rest of the day, great weekend. And I'm sure your next Facebook Live will be just as informational.
Yes,
So
definitely.
this is a great platform.
Mhm. All right. Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Have
Bye.
a great weekend, everyone. Let's see. I guess